Welcome back to Made of Wires. Some technical difficulties this morning, but we'll get through them and get started. If you're not familiar with the Made Up of Wires stream, we've been decompiling Castlevania Symphony of the Night, and that's what we're going to do today. If you're not familiar with that project, you can go to soten.z.dev. I'm a contributor to the project. Don't run it, just like to decompile and like Symphony of the Night, and so that's what I'm doing. So, we've been working on Doppelganger. Yesterday, I imported Doppelganger 40 and wanted to see how similar Doppelganger 40 was to Doppelganger 10, which we've been working on. And I've actually been able to go through the code that's been decompiled so far for Doppelganger 10 and map it to Doppelganger 40, and they seem very similar for most functions. So I'm going to go through the rest of the functions today. For Doppelganger 10 and 40 that both overlap and have an analog in DRA, because those are going to be reasonably straightforward. There's a few things that I want to look at regarding duplicates there, but that's my general plan. I'll show another tool that I have been working on as well. I want something that can lint code. So right now, Soten Lint is a tool that we have that will go through and find things that can be corrected through automation. And so we do that with enum flags a lot, where setting a field, when we set it in decomp.me, we're going to get a hex value usually. Maybe somebody accidentally turns it into a decimal value, not realizing that it's a flag. And so we have tools that'll come through, identify those assignments, comparisons, Boolean operations, things like that, and we'll convert them to the flags as appropriate. And fixed numbers, I've talked about that before. Soten uses 16-bit fixed values. PlayStation uses a split between 24 and 12-bit fixed values, and so there's some lint for that as well, and those will get fixed. What I wanted is a linter that can go through and identify things that are easy to know that they're wrong, but not necessarily easy to correct, and then kind of put the onus back on the implementer or the person submitting the PR to go fix it with some hints as to what might be wrong. So the first one that I've done in that vein, so we have tools. Tools is where all of the scripts and programs that we have for dealing with Soten live. Tools lints. Soten lint is what we have for all these custom enums and other things like that. So I added a entity range linter, and I'm gonna have to update this slightly. So basically this looks for global variables that are in the range of the G entity structure. And if they are in that range, then errors out and tells you that should be a global. And this actually worked a little too well. I was running this, and I thought it would actually find quite a bit. It found these lines here, just these 5 lines, and these happen to be in comments, and so I've added a comment stripper so that those don't get found. But there's a couple other things like this. So the sound effects, we can look for that. So if there's play SFX and then a hex value, I'll direct that in. Whoops. Which we have a lot of. Somebody really should go through and replace those with the correct enum values, creating the enum values if necessary. And so the first part is a little tricky. We have to go through and fix them all, but then once they're all fixed, a lint can be added. And the way that the enum lints currently work, you have to copy all the enum names and their values into SOT-lint. And so there's hundreds of sound effects. It would be impractical to keep that list there at the moment. So that's just a little fun tool. So like I said, I've been working on trying to synchronize VO4 and RBO5, Doppelganger 10 and Doppelganger 40. Not Rob5, RBO5. And there's basically 4 segments in both of these files that are unique to Doppelganger and are extremely similar to Richter and Alucard. I guess 2 of the sections are extremely similar to Richter and Alucard, and so that's what we're going to be looking for today. I'm going to run find on, I'll do VO4 non-matchings. So I want a name that ends in .s, and I don't want to ls those. I want not a name that starts with D underscore, because that is going to be RO data, and we can see what those are. That looks fine. I also want a name that starts with not name funkus. So these are things that will be in DRA. What happened here? I'm going to get rid of this. Find is kind of funny in its syntax. It basically has a set of Boolean expressions. I don't know why these D underscores. I'm saying not name. ls does return true, so let's get rid of that. ls may be breaking everything else. Still getting these D underscores. Okay, there we go. Okay, so entity player outline, that one, we looked at that earlier. That it's relatively complex. Let me filter these out and sort by size. There is one of the create entity functions that's unique to Alucard, doppelgangers, etc. Create entity factory from entity. Let's look at that one. There may be other instances of this. There are certainly other instances of it. Let's see where those are. So there is one in GAPI. So why we're not using that, I don't know. But that means the other one is going to be in DRA. And I want to find oh, it's not in DRA. What can we search for? Maybe void? Not a void return value. Maybe it probably returns an entity pointer. Oh, I am having trouble finding this. Let's try then. Getting all these, all this CMake output. The CMake output, I would prefer, would get stuck in the build directory, but that doesn't seem to be what's happening. Okay, so here's our create entity factory from entity. So what I'm looking for here is, are there globals that we need to be concerned about? It doesn't look like it. The only thing that might not be present is this E entity factory constant. And so we'll have to add that if that's not there. And the reason my grep wasn't finding it before is because the arg line gets wrapped. So let's find create ent factory. Not in this file, but in the other one. There we go. So this is the BO4 side. And let me sorry, RBO5 side, Doppleganger 47. So yeah, we don't have the E entity factory. So I'm going to grab that. It is possible that these IDs are different because the entity factory offsets will be in here. So let's grab the ID from DRA, but that might not end up being the one that we need. But we can go through and figure out the right value after we pull just one of the values. So I'm going to look at DRA.h and look for E entity factory, and it's 1. And let's see what we have in RBO5. It's probably not going to be 1 because we have E breakable and some other things. So I'm going to add a new enum, knowing that this is going to be wrong. And I'm okay with it being wrong, and we'll fix it in a little bit. There's a couple ways to get these IDs. One would be to look at the source. Oops. And I'm going to do it a more hacky way. I'm going to look at the diff between RBO5 and... Oh, and so what that was showing was this is actually more different than I expected it to be. I expected to be able to use the one from DRA, but this is just saying the size of this function ends up being different than the one in DRA. So I'm going to back all this out, and then we can go to decomp.me and decompile what is in RBO5 and see how close it is to the version in DRA. So ASM US boss, RBO5 non-matching unknown 46584, which is the offset of where this file starts, the compiled code offset, and then the create ent factory. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to move over to decomp.me, save my entity mist. It probably is worth, so entity mist was mostly matching. Let me, I'll just create a new scratch and leave these windows open, add to my pile of mess. So PlayStation, my preset is set already. Create Entity Factory from Entity has kind of a funky signature, so I'm going to grab that. Of course, I have closed it. I'm just looking for that now. So I'm going to copy the signature, and I'm just doing that in Vim. Oops. Button. I'm going to grab the signature. I have my second monitor disabled, so I'm going to have more window management issues than normal. So pardon the interruption. So this is actually, it looks like a simpler version. Maybe not. So we're not matching though. So let's get this matching, and then we can try it on VO4 as well. There's nothing terribly complicated yet. I'm going to rename temp v0 entity. This bar v0 doesn't look like it needs to exist. So I'm going to get rid of that and just rename that entity as well. And down here, I'm going to get rid of the assignment. And so we're not quite there yet. I'm going to change this to a return null, and then just fall through. Though that makes it worse. So, there's actually something slightly different looking at this compared to the way I named it. It's fine the way that I named it. In the DRA version, they call it new factory, which makes sense because you are creating a entity factory. So let's do that. Let's rename this. Interestingly, entity ID is 1. We have a different entity ID right now at 1, and so I'll have to see if replacing that breaks anything. I'm going to rename entity new factory. All right, and so let's look at what the differences are. This is a pretty small function. So I think what happened was I didn't change that condition, and that's why it ended up being so off after I did that. So I'm gonna exit early. That's my coding preference anyway, and I'm kind of glad that that is how the Soten authors chose to code. One of the interesting things about C89 or GNU 89, depending on what version this actually is, you have to declare your variables up front. You can't declare them nested in other blocks. And any assignment to those variables has to occur after all the variables are declared, with some exceptions. And this is one of them. And so I can declare this inline, which is not a luxury we usually have. So going back over and looking at this version. So our parameters for getFreeEntity are a little different. We actually don't have a bunch of these additional checks related to what the factory params are, or at least it doesn't seem that way. But we do need to figure out what is going on here. So I'm going to change this to the factory extension. And that looks like it's the parent. These look fine. Facing left and Z priority are out of order, possibly, or I guess Z priority comes there, and that was it. These get reordered, and so it's not necessarily obvious, but that's all it was. It looks like maybe one of unknown, unknown A0 is getting set here. And then we're using the factory extension. This is a little different from the DRA one. So in DRA, we're doing the mask first and then shifting. I'm trying to, it seems like the shift, we could do it the same way as DRA does, and DRA may be doing it the other way because of the PSP. I'm not sure if this is compiled on the PSP. So I just changed the order of the mask and the shift. So I had to shift over the mask another 8 bits to the left. And it produces the same machine code, but this may produce something that works better on the PSP. I don't know if this is compiled yet for the PSP, but we'll see. So that looks like it's working. Good evening, Dig Down Deep. Good to have you back. The other left. Like I said earlier, I have no idea which left is the right left. So let's go back to our before I paste this, I am going to open the RBO5 header, because what this was suggesting was that entity factory is entity 1, but we already have eBreakable, and breakable is used by other things. So can we actually use an entity for two different things, or maybe eBreakable is not necessary? Before I do that paste, I'm going to get rid of eBreakable and then rebuild everything in RBO. RBO5, and we'll see what happens. Okay, so it looked like it was not necessary. I took these from, I think, Entity Maria. I am going to, these seem to be the same between both doppelgangers, so I'm going to take these and move them into the shared header. And I can get rid of this entity factory. And I'll have to fix BO4 as well. And just to make sure that I didn't break BO4, I'll recompile all of those as well. And that works as well. All right, so let's put this in. And I'm going to replace this with E entity factory. And that worked. Great. So we have another one. And I'm pretty certain that this is going to work without any modifications on BO4 as well. If I had the right file open. Oops. There you go. And it works there as well. So another one done. Let's get the next. What is next? So we can go a little tougher. Let's go and look at this 3AAC function. So a small switch statement. The only thing I'm worried about here is the globals, of which there seem to be a lot of them. Some of them, though, are going to be entity fields that I haven't mapped yet. So we could take this opportunity to map those as well. Let's look at the signature for that as well. So this is a function that's coming from, the name is coming from DRA. So I expect it to be relatively similar. And we can look at the dupes report and see how similar they will be or should be. this looks like it's an entity update function. Oh, it's not. Okay, so I don't know what this is. Didn't expect it to have a void return type. Or a void, argument. All right, so we have a function that may or may not be mapped, a couple of those. What is going to help here is getting each of these fields that I don't have mapped yet as symbols. This should help determine what those are. And then I can add mappings for each of those, which will make future decomp a little easier. Unfortunately, all of those symbols being added are really just going to help with the doppelganger. And so maybe I should rename those because it's not, for other overlays, it's not going to be doppelganger. It's going to be whatever the first entity is. Usually you're not referencing that directly, but occasionally you are. So I'm going to go back over to decomp.me, create this scratch. We have a new state as well, the player jump state, which is 5. So we'll I'll go back and add that. And I have a few function signatures to figure out. It looks like all the variables, all the globals were figured out. It's this set here. These are all going to need to be mapped in the symbol table. So I'm going to, on the side, I'm going to open the symbol table for the US version. And start those entries. It's a lot of them, so I'm almost tempted to map all these and then re-export. But we'll see how it goes first. There is a few issues too. Looking at the order here, step, rotation Z, pivot Y coming first, then pivot X, draw flags facing left. And in this one, step S is out of order. So this next one is going to be rotation Z, F6. So I'll add that. And then working down, it looks like rotation pivot Y, rotation pivot X. So A is rotation pivot Y. The rotation pivot is interesting for something else that I want to work on, and I wonder, I'd have to look at it, but if there's a rotation pivot Z as well. Then F1 is going to be, is it draw flags? It looks like draw flags. I'm a little surprised that I don't have draw flags yet. Okay, and then 304 is a value getting set equal to 5. It's around the palette, so this is the step. Oh, this is player jump. Step, I don't have. I have step S, but not step. If you're seeing an ad now, no. If you're not seeing an ad now, I can't talk to people seeing ads now. If you're not seeing an ad now, thank you very much for your support. I appreciate it. It's quite a privilege to be able to stream and just talk about all of the things that we find along the way, as well as just go over this process. I was thinking about what I hope people get out of this. I really enjoy like documentaries and things like that, watching people work who are masters at their craft. I'm definitely not a master at this craft, but I am working at doing something. And so I'm hoping that that is at least part of the enjoyment that people get out of the stream. These will be in a slightly different order than this. And if there's things that I can do to improve, as always, please chat, add a comment, like, subscribe, do all the things. And I will take it under advisement. So the order here is going to be palette, step S1, or step S, and then step S, and then step. This is going to be OVL pal OVL, meaning pal overlay. And it looks like Doppelganger is undeclared. How dare they? Could be. So let me grab that macro. All right, so one more of these globals, and it's this check for 0 right near the end. Off screen, I'm fixing, I didn't have the Doppelganger macro shared, so I'm sharing that now. And then this check for less than 1 is animation frame duration. That looks like most of them. So let's clean this up and get it compiling and see where this ends up. There's some kind of unfortunate the way that this facing left +1 and 1. So this would be the same as doing XOR on itself with 1. It'd be nice and terse if that was done. So caret equals, but that's not what's being done here. So what can we do? Step S is a secondary step. So this DBA is unique, and we need to deal with that. Rid of this doppelganger step here. And where else are we missing? 28. We probably have a step for this as well. So let me see if that... sorry, this is not the right one. So I'm looking here at the equivalent line over here, and it's just setting it to 3, so nobody has named this yet. So I'm not going to do any more with that. Fix some things that I've broken. Velocity Y is the last one. 66. And then we need, why isn't this compiling? I need to go get function signatures for the set player animation. I'm going to get those from the RBO5 directory. Oh, it's not there. Let's... And this 6040 is our next one. To get that signature, since that is unique to this overlay, I'm going to look at what function is being called in DRA. Find that and use its signature. It looks like it's being called all over the place. And it looks like a bool. I would be interested to see what this function does, since we've not... I don't believe it's been decompiled yet. That might be an easy one to do next. Famous last words. It does call a lot of other functions, unfortunately, which all would have to be mapped. Not many unique ones, though, so maybe not too bad. All the players would have to be replaced with doppelganger, so maybe not too difficult. We'll see. All right, and then one more function to find, which is this 8017C. Sorry, I missed missed a lot of characters in there. that is the same as this 39cc function. And that just takes an arg32. That one actually is a pretty simple function. It does call one external function as well. So it does have a global symbol that's required. All right. So I'm going to reference the DRA version a little bit, but I want to go through here and see what may or may not already be set the way that it needs to. So the first thing, and this is being done by DRA, we're only doing most of the logic in this function if this condition is false. So we can invert that and return right away and get rid of the close of this block. That doesn't really change anything. I was hoping that it would change a little more, but it doesn't. That's okay. This TBA looks like a sine 32. It's storing back a word. I'm not sure why it's being loaded so differently. I'm going to try array access and see if that changes anything. Yeah, and that looks more correct. So we do have to find it down here as well. It's definitely possible that this is something else. We are missing a variable somewhere along the way that we'll need to find. As far as 1 getting set very early to 0, may or may not be out of order. There's no reason except, I guess, ordering here that it couldn't be done later. So we're still missing something up here, and I'll find that in a bit as we go through the rest of this. A lot of times greater than or equal to's are often just greater than 1 less. It doesn't change anything, but on the PSP especially, that can affect registers. The offsets here, I'm going to look at this DRA version just to make sure that all the fields are in the correct order. So step S, rotation Z, pivot Y, pivot X. Pivot Y and pivot X are the ones that I'm most concerned about. That does look correct, though. If we change their order, does it matter? It doesn't. So I'm going to leave it in the order that the expected order, as opposed to the backwards order. If we have to change it back, that's fine. This DBA also needs to be a 0. So that does look different than the DRA version. I'm going to do the same thing here. Greater than 1C. 1C is going to be 32, 44. No. 28. I can math. So the next divergence then is down here on line 53. And this is the same thing. This should be array access. Hey, Project Oblivion, good to see you. thank you for getting that all the script stuff checked in. It's nice to get hey, Steely? I'm bad at lead speak, so correct me if you need to. So yeah, it does seem like all these are array access, which is a little strange. What else do we need to look at? Oh, this isn't array access. This is actually part of GDOP. GDOP is player state, but for Doppelganger. So I'm gonna have to go grab that. We can actually just add it up here. So we have an external player state, and that's matched already in both Doppelganger 40 and Doppelganger 10. So let me go back and fix some of these then. So this is going to be the VRAM flag. I'm not certain what the VRAM flag is for, but that is what it is. I haven't looked at that and haven't needed to know it, so I don't. It is used quite a bit in this, though. And I don't think we have a... so there's some rotational aspect to this. I don't know if we have a meaning for this function yet. This makes me feel better that these are part of GDOP, because that means I don't have to map another global, and this should just slot right in. I might have this one wrong. This should be on 4A. And then I should be able to get rid of these. Missed one. So 39 is going to be 48 plus 9, which is 57 greater than 56. All right, so there is missing instructions still up here. It looks like maybe these are out of order. So I'll come back to that in a second. I'm going to go down top to bottom and just see where this is after all those changes. So still missing a store to the stack up here. We'll see if that comes out. There's a branch to the wrong location, which is likely due to missing instructions below. We'll work out the offsets if they're wrong, but I'm pretty sure that those are all correct. And offset, offset, offset. And then down on line 48 is where we see the first issue. So let's look at, so we have rotation, pivot X, pivot Y, and then draw flags. On our DRA version. So this is right around case 2. Draw flags is getting set first. And so reordering that, I'll do it for the camera. That fixes all that up really nicely. Down line 76, have an error. Go look at DRA for that as well. So here we have an odd variable. So the fake comment is cases where there's odd instructions that seemingly do something, and that something is affecting the compilation and basically nothing else. So I'm going to add a new variable. Temp v1 is actually not being used. I'll rename that temp to match what is here. And so we're going to set that to 0. I'll add the same fake comment here, and then we'll compare it to temp. And that gives us the correct instructions there. So even though the person who originally decompiled this thought this possibly was a hack or something else just to get the compilation working, it's required on this version as well, which is unique. So it's either being done this way or something very similar. So the only thing that I see now in the diff are immediate value differences. And those are things that decomp.me can't know. So I think this is pretty safe. I'm going to grab the function signatures at the top. The GDOP declaration, I'll probably move that into the doppelganger header because it's used pretty widely. But let's see if that works. I think we got rid of all of the globals that haven't been declared. Okay, so we have some function references, and I should have cleaned those up first. I'm going to revert this and go clean those up. Forgot about the functions. Actually, where are those functions? Oh, something happened. I got lost along the way. So we're matching without any of those functions. Why do we have declarations for them? I don't know. Okay, so we have a few undefined references. Let's see where these are. So we need to figure out what function this is. It seems like it's something that's mapped. That's good because that means that we have a name for it. But we need to figure out what that name is. So I'm going to look in ASM/US boss RB04 or RB05, sorry. And I don't know if it's matching or unmatching yet. That isn't correct. I'm going to try one more thing. Not sure where that symbol came from and where the E7C symbol is coming from. Oh, there it is. Why am I not finding these in decomp.me? There they are. The functions that I have in... Oh. I'm dumb. I copy these over incorrectly. And now I don't recall. They have the same arguments, so I'm not super concerned about getting the... I copied the function signatures from DRA. It might be worth mapping these, though, because we know that they're the same thing as what's in DRA, but they're not... Dupes didn't figure out that they're matching. Or this was... Maybe these are mapped already. Let's look. I don't know what's going on. I'm very confused. No, those functions right there. Okay, so you need to find where this symbol is and why it's not mapped. Oh, I may have pulled this from BO4. Could that be why? I did. That's why it's not working. So this is the BO4 version. So let's revert all that in RBO5. So we do have some functions that need to be updated to match both sides. And I do need to fix the function signatures as well. Kind of an odd mistake. All right, so here's BO4, and that matches. So we can take this back over. There's a couple things we can do. We can map these functions to a common name. That common name could be the same thing as what is in DRA, which might not be the worst idea. Or we could copy it over and then just update the symbols in RBO5. That's also not a terrible idea. I think I'm just going to copy the symbols for now. And what's nice about how these are split at the moment is they're lined up. So as things get pulled into common functions or common files, that work can be done at a later time. The names of these aren't particularly good, so I'm not attached to the symbols themselves. But I do need these function names, so I'm going to go to unknown 46548 directory, which is where this function will be, and I'm going to grab the assembly here, look for JAL, and these are the names for RBO5. JAL being jump and link. I was thinking about MIPS instructions because, you know, what else do people do? If somebody's going to give me like a test on MIPS instructions, would I know like the machine code form or So there's 3 formats for MIPS: immediate, register, or jump. Could I break those all up? Probably not. That would be nice to get as secondhand. So this is working as well. So we have another one done. And we get to do these both on DRA and, sorry, not DRA, Doppelganger 10 and 40 at the same time, which is, I think, really nice. We'll look for some of those other functions and see if we can get those done as well, these dependent functions. So I'm going to go back to the DRA versions of these and look at them there. And this is one that we did look at earlier. So there's player, velocity, G player, all that's fine. If I remember correctly, yeah, there's a few function calls down here that would need to be updated. So it's long, but I don't think it's particularly complex. And then the other one is this 9cc function. If this one's shorter, we can knock that one out. And this one is, and it looks like it's, except with the exception of this function here, which we should be able to find, this is all symbols that we already have. So let's grab that 9cc. This one we'll do without decomp.me. We do need to find it though. It's known as E7C here. And that is one file earlier. Looks like right at the end. The reason I split the files where I did is because of a jump table in the function that we just worked on. But it seems like possibly I should include this file with that, along with the other one, and then it probably can be static as well. So let's do that first. So we need the offset here, which is going to be 46E7C. And we're going to need to grab this. So we're going to take this assembly out of this file. Oops. And we're going to throw it up here at the top of this file. And then do the same thing for RBO5. And now we have to adjust the splits on both of these in Splat. So I'm going to open Splat, US, BO, RBO5 for this one. And unfortunately, that's going to change the file name as well. That's okay. Makes me a little sad. That's what you get for naming files after offsets. So this one, instead of 4 6584. It's going to be 648C. And then on the BO4 side, we're going to do the same change, except our offsets are different. 6E7C. All right, and so I can run a make extract. And make again, I'm going to have to update the include directory here. I'm going to rename this file eventually. And so this is just temporary. But I want these files to be named the same. And maybe I should give them a name that's not based on their offset, so I don't have to do this again. But for now, that's fine. Oops, that's the new offset. I have comments up there that are based on the offset as well. It's changed a lot. All right, so now we'll do make extract. So extract is going to generate new linker scripts, use this file structure to disassemble, create a new disassembly file for that function in the correct place on disk. And nobody's checking me. Nobody's checking me. I had Safari up the whole time. So we moved this around, and that symbol is now in a different place. So we have to recompile everything in for those overlays as well. We don't have to recompile everything. We would only have to recompile the things that depended on those symbols. But because I don't know everything that depends on those symbols, I just recompile everything. So here we have this function DRA, and again I'm making kind of a big assumption that it is the same just based on doppelganger instead of player. And we'll see if that proves to be correct. gplayer is not involved here. This function is going to be different as well, so I have to go find what that function is going to be. ASM boss BO4 unknown for non-matchings unknown 4 6, and then it should be the first function. Oh, but it's not. What function are we in? Oh, I'm in the wrong split. There we go. So we need to find the JAL instruction again. And what we want is, oh, this is actually a nice one. So this function happens to be part of GAPI, and the only difference is that we're calling the GAPI version. So let's see if that works. Undefined reference to play SFX. That also is the GAPI version. And that works. And so we don't have to do anything more for this except change the name, and this will work just fine over on Doppelganger 40. So now, do I want to go change the name of all of these files? I do, because I am a pedant. And having that offset and file name different would bug me to no end. So I'm going to change those. And it's going to be slightly painful. I am going to commit everything that I have so that I don't lose it. Commit early, commit often. All right, and so now, here we go. So the 648C, I'll do a find and replace with this unknown 6584. And 4648C. And then I want to do the same thing down here, but first I'm going to move this file. And I'm going to use git move, and I can use percent in vim. Percent is the current file. And now my file's not going to be there anymore, so I'll go and edit the new file. And now I'm going to do the same global search and replace, and that should now work. I'm going to have to do that same global search and replace over here because I'm referencing the file over here. So, not trusting myself to not make a mistake, I'm going to make extract and make J again. J just does an unlimited number of parallel jobs. Usually, the scheduler, your operating system scheduler, is good enough. You can pass an argument to J to tell it how many cores you have, which is probably the optimal number of jobs to run. Now we're going to do the same thing over here. This file on the BO4 side, none of the stuff on the RBO5 side is in the INZIMO's master repository. And this split for BO4 hasn't been submitted for PR yet either, so this is just gross on my end. Nobody else will see this except if you're watching the stream, and thank you for watching the stream if you're doing that. I appreciate it. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. Going to do a global search and replace for our new offset. So it's done there. Going to do it over here. I'm going to move this file to the new location. Open that file to make sure that I'm not going to resave the old one. And then do the global replace in that file so that it's looking at the right ASM directories. So I think that should be everything. And now these files' names are aligned with their offsets again. And what's nice about this is I didn't check it beforehand, but these offsets now align with DRA as well. So if we look at the DRA function where this, or file where this came from, not quite. We might have to move this up a little more still. So it looks like, I'm a little surprised. This one actually might not be split correctly, and maybe it is. So one of the things that Splat will tell you when you're splitting files is if it notices that a jump table is not aligned on a boundary that it expects, and usually that indicates that that jump table came from a different compilation unit or .o file. And if it happens to align, Splat won't recognize that. So even though there is a file split that would match what was originally in the game code, you might not be able to see that. There was one more thing that I wanted to fix. Now that I'm thinking about it, this is dop jump. There is going to be some issues here that I didn't think about beforehand. When the linter comes through, and I should do a check for player. When the linter comes through, it might be renaming these steps. Maybe not. No, it can't rename steps. I'm dumb. It's not going to rename the steps because step could be lots of different things, and different entities have different steps. And we don't have player in here, so that's good. So I'm going to add all this. I was doing some, showed it at the beginning of the stream, some lints, some fail-only lints that don't try to rewrite what you have and just fail. Those splits are new. Names are new. Paths are new. And then that is just my changes from the linter. So let's double check that I got everything. Looks like it. All right, so what is next? Nothing for today. If you want to know more about the Soten decomp project, you can go to soten.z.dev. I'll be back on Monday doing more decompilation. I'd like for you to join me, if you don't mind. If you like watching decomp, feel free to ask any questions in chat or comment, reply, do all the things on YouTube as well. We've been working on BO4, and this should be updated with some of the new BO4 stuff. So BO4, we're at 68-ish%. Is that really the most? Not too far. So when RBO 5 comes, which I'll submit sometime between now and Monday, the graph, I'm hoping, will look exactly the same. The graph won't look the same. The graph will jump up to the same level that BO4 is at, and we'll try to keep it the same and continue to integrate code in both overlays at the same time and get both of them done at the same time. That's all I have for you. Have a good weekend. Adios.